in one of the advertisements, I think it was an online thing. I was reading it. I think it was some. There's a couple of websites that we have: Meditation Learning Center, and then there's ShaneWilson.org, and then there's actually another one for the teacher training program. But I think it was in ShaneWilson.org where it said Shane Wilson, meditation teacher and Buddhist teacher. Actually, I think it was on Psychology Today on that area. But I looked at that and I took out the teacher of Buddhism on there, and because even though I and many other people teach Buddhism, I was thinking about it. It was something that the Buddha never wanted. He never wanted people to call this like a religion. He didn't want it called Buddhism. And so the Buddha himself wasn't even a teacher of Buddhism. He was a teacher of the truth. And for somebody to call themselves a teacher of Buddhism almost goes against what the Buddha really asked people to do, which was to not really necessarily be a part of and bringing together some kind of an organized system that has a firm belief system. He always said, don't believe what I say just because I'm saying it, but to search and get your own facts, find your own truth. And thankfully, the teachings that the Buddha gave were the truth, and it's something that we can all share with ourselves and with others, and can reveal it as a truth. When other more Western traditions of Buddhist teaching, I guess you could say, kind of came out, there's a lot of phrases and lots of teachings that they say are Buddhism, but they aren't necessarily the words of the Buddha, which is very, very tricky, because none of the words that I ever spoke, unless it was a Pali word, it was actually the word of the Buddha, because he didn't even speak English. English wasn't even a language back when the Buddha was around, that I know of it, not the way we speak it anyway. And so when we say that the Buddha said this or the Buddha said that, we have to be very, very careful, saying that these are the words of the Buddha. Getting back to that little advertisement, it said teacher of meditation, and I can go along with that. And it also said teacher of Buddhism, which is a little tricky. So I erased the teacher of Buddhism part out, by a stroke of a key, and left the teacher of meditation teacher aspect on there. And but meditation has really taught myself and a lot of other people the basics of Buddhism. Just by listening to our own hearts and listening to our own truth. And what I mean by that is, if we meditate consistently on a daily basis, the truth will reveal itself to us and for us. And the Buddha, he wanted us to be happy. I think we can all agree on that. I mean, that's what he wanted. He wanted us to find peace of mind in daily living. And so he taught on many different levels, from the homeowner to, he taught to kings and royalty, and he taught to other very, very spiritual and aware people. So he had many different levels of teaching. To whoever he was teaching to, he would adjust that for that particular person or that particular group. And he was quite, supposedly quite skilled at it. Always said the right words, but always spoke the truth and always put the truth out. And so in meditation, I think that we can all learn from a consistent practice that a meditation, like the barometer of whether it's working or not, is our level of happiness. You know, the more we meditate, the happier we should become if we're doing it correctly. In some cases, it doesn't work right away. You know, we can discover some things about ourselves that might not make us absolutely excited to be us, you know, to be extremely happy about who we are. But eventually, when we learn all these deep understandings, these deep truths about ourselves, you know, this happiness should come up. You know, it should be a part of our lives. In fact, I've never really met a consistent meditator that didn't have that peace of mind within them. You know, somebody that meditated every day. So I know it works, and the only way that we can really test that is to do it every day and find out for sure. But the Buddha said that we do suffer. He said that life has an element of suffering to it, and which immediately gives Buddhism a bad name, you know, because the leader is saying that, hey, you guys are suffering, you know, and which is true though, particularly when you look at why we suffer. And he said the reason we suffer is because of our desires, but even more so because not the desire itself, but the attachment to these things that we desire, you know, the grasping, the hanging on. And so meditation and the general Buddhist teachings teach us to be able to relinquish that, to be able to let go of those attachments, those things that are sticky for us. And because he was saying that, and we all know this, that we're born into this world with nothing, and we leave with nothing. And if we try to hang on to these things, it's a struggle, you know. And it's just like that. We can experience that if we try to hang on to anything for fear of losing it. We will have restlessness and worry, and all sorts of things will come about. But if we spend our entire lifetime attached to something, hanging on to something, at that end of that lifetime, there will be some suffering involved because we'll be separated from it. And to take that even a step further, in our next life, that attachment would bring us back into a rebirth, according to the Buddhist and the Hindu tradition. Buddha had a unique way of allowing us to relinquish that. And in a teaching, I mean, he couldn't just wave his fingers and his hand and say, let all that stuff go and now you're free, although that's what we should be doing. To be able to let go of these attachments is key for our happiness and key for our peace of mind in daily living. Again, which is what the Buddha, I'm sure, wanted us to have. Peace of mind in daily living. And so to let go of these things, the primary teaching of the Buddha was that to see all of this as impermanent, that everything isn't worth that struggle to hang on to grasp and want it to be ours forever, that kind of thing. And so he reminded us that everything was very, very fluid, and that it wasn't worth having these attachments in life, that everything was impermanent. And also he took it a step further by saying that everything that we're seeing is basically somewhat of an illusion by the way we see it. So we're not really seeing the truth of the matter. We're seeing things much more solid than they really are. We're not seeing the impermanent nature of things unless we kind of really drill it into us and remind ourselves that things are impermanent. And there's many, many different examples of this, and how we see things and perceive, not only see but sense things, how how we hear and take in all these different sights and sounds, all these different senses that we experience. And one of the analogies, I actually heard it today, and I thought it was quite good, but just imagine that if we took all of the beings in the world, I mean people and insects and animals, you know, all the bats and spiders and butterflies and giraffes and elephants and donkeys and people, and we took all of these living beings and we put them in a big, like a big arena, and we put a big, let's say just a rock. We put a rock in the middle of the arena and asked all these beings to identify that rock and express what you see, that rock being. How do you perceive that rock? And of course there would be all sorts of crazy things that would come up because of the different perceptions from all the different beings. You know, let's say, it's kind of like Noah's Ark in a way. You know, we're taking one representation of each animal and each insect and one human, and we put it all in there. And like a bat would see the rock from the perspective of sonar. You know, they have a sonar apparatus, and a dolphin too, and probably many, many other animals. There's different frequencies that insects, like a butterfly, for example, would view this rock. You know, they would sense it. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, a butterfly picks up things from a level of infrared, picks up elements of heat from, you know, different objects. Ever hear that? I'm asking the residents.
No, I'm pretty geeky, but I don't know that.
Never heard that. You're pretty what?
Geeky.
DT?
Geeky.
Geeky.
I'm a bit of a geek with that stuff, but I don't know that particular thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm an animal.
But we can imagine that all these different insects, animals, all these different beings would see this rock in a different way. And if there was a vote and they said how many people, or how many of you beings, not people, but how many of you beings see this as a rock, the human would raise its hand. And so, you know, if they took a vote on is this a rock or not, we would lose. It wouldn't be a rock. It wouldn't be anything like that. And so, you know, we see a rock and we label it as a rock, and to us it's a rock. But you know, what are we actually seeing? It's many, many different elements, you know, of nature compounded together in aggregates that form this rock. And you know, we just kind of say, well, that's a rock, and kind of leave it at that. But we're not really seeing the whole picture, because what is inside that rock is probably millions and millions of years of history, and much more, just way beyond our comprehension. And it's really like that with everything that we see, everything that we touch, and everything that we experience. And actually, most of the world, you know, even the things that we're experiencing now, is probably just 1 or 2% of what is actually happening in our world. I mean, we're so limited by what we're perceiving. There's so much more happening, you know, all around us at this point. And so our perception is very, very limited. And so when we think of those terms and how we can actually attach to something and want something in our life so bad, it kind of brings a reality to it, you know. And I'm not saying that all of us should not have any ownership, or that we should just throw away everything that we have or something like that. But we want to be very, very careful of our attachments to objects and ideas and all these different things. So our perception is altered, and you know, it's not that it's not the truth. It's just that we have to really be careful of saying that this is a fact and this is how things are, and the reason we want to be careful with that is because of the things that we can attach to. So theoretically, we become too attached to things that are absolutely meaningless to us in many ways. And again, we come into this world with nothing, and we leave with this world with nothing, and we realize that. But there's a certain truth to that indicates that we can really be a little bit easier on ourselves on the things that we feel like we have to have in our life. And so a lot of the freedom that the Buddha was talking about, and a lot of the joy in life, is from understanding these truths, that we have to be careful of attachment, to be able to learn to let go of a certain amount of things, and to see things as impermanent, that they're not lasting, including all of this. This is probably the hardest thing to lose our attachment to, is this stuff. And you can ask my father. He's 95 years old, trying to watch the debate right now without falling asleep, and that kind of thing. And he understands impermanence very well. And but it's still a lesson that he's going to be learning on a daily basis until the end, and that's true for all of us. Henry Thoreau was a pretty interesting guy. He was an author, and he lived in the woods, Walden Pond, if I'm not mistaken. And I heard him say that, or read, I didn't hear him, I wasn't talking to him, but I read that he was studying the Native American language. I'm not sure if it was Cherokee or Shawnee or whatever it was, but he was studying one of the Native American languages. And he said that when he started using this old ancient Native American language to identify things, that he started seeing them differently. His perception started to change. Which is kind of along the lines of exactly what we're talking about here, how our perception is not solid at all, how we see things. And actually, what we're seeing right now, we could say that this is exactly the truth right now, but we can come back here 1 minute later and we'll see things completely different than it is. Because our perception cannot stay the same. It is constantly changing. It is constantly changing. That's why everything is so impermanent. It's not that material things are impermanent, but our perception of it is very, very much impermanent. And some of you have heard me mention about the different meditation traditions, the West and the East, and usually the Eastern traditions, in other words, the older meditation traditions are based on letting go. The meditation, the purpose of meditation is to recognize that there is always something to be able to let go, and in that letting go is really where we find that peace of mind, that we can just kind of settle in when we come to that point. There's always something to let go of. So please make yourself comfortable, and we'll do a meditation. I'll guide us through some of it. Just make the body comfortable, gently close the eyes. Try to find a balance in the body. The body is always the best place to start for our meditation practice. It's really the grossness of who we believe we are, the body. We feel like we are resting the body now. We're closing the eyes. We can relax the body. There might be an ache or a pain in the body or some kind of fatigue. But we can intentionally relax the body. And so that's an aspect of the mind, reminding ourselves to relax. Relaxing different parts of the body. So we have a mind-body communication, connection. And once the body is relaxed, the mind follows. And when we have a consistent practice in meditation, it's much, much easier to kind of set the body on the shelf and not worry about it. We're not so worried about the posture after a while. The sooner we get that out of our mind, whether we're actually sitting correctly or doing meditation correctly, the sooner we get that out of the mind, the better it is. So just know that as long as you're somewhat comfortable, yet you're doing the meditation correctly, try to keep the body balanced, the back fairly straight, and the chin lifted a little bit. And since the body is such a wonderful place to start our meditation practice, we can use some aspect of the body as our meditation object or our point of focus. And I usually suggest that people use the breath to focus on. It's always moving, it's always there, it's reliable. We can actually focus on the breath, and if we lose focus on the breath, it doesn't stop, which is a good thing. Our attention wanders around from thought to thought and situations and sounds and ideas. And then we catch the wandering mind and bring it back to the attention of the breath. Very basic. And while doing this practice, we realize that if we relinquish the thoughts of the past and any intentions of the future, that we can find peace. It's like we're taking the edge off of this thing called life. We're resting in this present moment. And this present moment is the closest thing to reality and truthfulness and peace of mind that we can find at this time. every one of us is probably using the breath in a different way. The main idea is that we focus on some aspect of it and rest in this presence, this present moment reality. You can focus in the different areas of the breath, or the sensation of the breath, the feeling, even the sound of the breath. Whatever works best for you. But the main thing, particularly tonight, is that we notice that when we're focusing on something as simple as the breath, and we're doing it lightly, that there is really no attachment that we're leaning towards in life. Everything is fine just the way it is. Nothing more is needed to make the moment any better than what it is right now. And this is that peacefulness, that peace of mind in the moment, peace of mind in daily living, that is so important for us to have and experience. can put our hands together in front of our hearts if you like. May each one of us and all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. May no harm come to us. May no difficulties come to us. May we all meet with spiritual and worldly success. May we have the patience, courage, and the understanding to meet and overcome any problems or difficulties that we might face in life. Thank you. So our theme tonight is attachment or the lack of, and how that relates to everything. You know, the aspect of being able to let go, which is the opposite of attachment, and how the Buddha recommended that we let go, and that is to focus on the impermanence of life, of everything, you know, ideas and material things and all of this. And so oftentimes what that comes down to is that we, you know, meditation is a practice of going within. And so it's always a job of reflecting, you know. And that reflection is, you know, just us being the mirror and looking in the mirror at the same time and seeing what, you know, what comes up. So, you know, in this type of practice, we ask ourselves about our attachments. You know, what are we attached to? And it's not that we sit in meditation and think about, you know, what am I attached to? What can I let go of? Or, you know, that kind of thing. Because that's not what meditation is. It's not a time for self-psychotherapy and asking and thinking and, you know, doing all this mental work. It's really quite the opposite, where we are experiencing this peacefulness, you know, from being in the present moment of you know, this nowness. So the question that I am going to ask now is best to ask after the meditation, when it comes to attachment. And there's different ways that we can approach that question about our personal attachments, you know, and a lot of them are very personal. You know, attachments, first of all, you know, we want to be clear what attachments are, and we can be attached to anything. When we think of attachments, a lot of people will think of like severe attachments, like addictions, or their attachment to food, or attachment to their hobbies, or people, a particular person, or a place.
My car.
Your car, yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of people are attached to their car and their mode of living. You know, how we live today. Very few people would be willing to give up their car, you know, because they're attached to it. It could be done, especially with Uber and Lyft, you know, and those kinds of things now. They're still doing those, aren't they? Yeah. Or is there something new now? Yeah. So the question, and there's different ways I could ask this question, you know, to each of you, and the only reason I do it is not to embarrass anybody or to pry or anything like that. But, you know, instead of asking, you know, what's your worst addiction, or what, you know, what is your worst attachment? You know, that's something that is not usually a good idea to ask individuals in a group, but we could ask it in such a way like, what is the funnest attachment that you would have difficulty giving up? You know, the thing that you really, really enjoy. What that maybe it's not necessarily harming you, or maybe it's not harming anybody else, but what would that attachment be? What is your funnest attachment? And that's usually the thing that is hardest to give up. One of the attachments that hardest to give up. We can have any number of attachments. So when I ask that question, what comes to mind? Does everybody have something? Your funnest attachment?
Mine is my car.
Anybody
Get
else?
around.
Social media, I would say.
The what?
Social media.
Social
My
media.
phone.
Yeah, totally.
Can-
Myself, when I think about that for myself, it's actually like my style of living, my way of living, to be able to give that up, the house and the car, all of it, not just these individual things, but the comfort that's provided for me. A lot of that comfort is provided from Terry, this girl right here. And, for me to give that up, that's giving up that way of living. That's why the virus pandemic thing is so difficult, because it changes the way of life for a lot of people, I think it's getting better, but especially when the toilet paper crisis was there, it's like, stupid things like that, that's the thing of the past. Doesn't it seem like that was like a year ago, the toilet paper problem,
It
Oh,
was
it
next
wasn't
fade
quite a
forever.
year ago, was it?
It wasn't, but it feels,
Yeah.
there's so much that's
Seems like it was a long
that's
time ago.
happened, but it does seem like it's longer ago than
Yeah.
it really was.
Yeah. Buddhism is laced with, morality situations too. He like, kind of like the Ten Commandments in Christianity. It's not like you have to do these things, but they're strong suggestions. In Buddhism, we have the Eightfold Path, which is really pertains to our way of living, which means not to be attached. A lot of this stuff will inevitably come up in our meditation, because our meditation is really, this is a Freudian term, but it's a kind of a dip into the subconscious for us. And if there's any kind of immorality issues pertaining to attachment, it usually has a way to come up and show its face in our meditation. It's just not like we're trying for that to happen. It just says, hey, what about this? And not that it's going to be staying there in our conscious mind. And do you have something?
Did you say stealing? Stealing? Did you say
Stealing, yeah, that's it, stealing, yeah.
That'd
Yeah.
help.
Right. Stealing or taking what is not ours, and if that's an attachment, it could really lead into problems. Anything that disturbs our peace of mind, and during our meditation practice or outside of our meditation practice, is something that is not helping us out in the area of morality. In other words, if we are worrying about something, an action that we did in the past, action of body, speech, and mind, that we feel bad about, that will come up and disturb our peace of mind. So it's very, very simple for us to, take a look at that and see that as a lesson and go, oh, that's something that I shouldn't be doing. And, it happens to everybody. Everybody goes through it. It's just one of those things. We hopefully learn that stuff when we're younger, that this is not the right behavior, so we stop doing it, And so basically anything that disturbs our peace of mind is something that we should be aware of, and particularly if we can relate that to being an attachment, that's the first thing that we should take care of. So like your car, for example, you said that is an attachment, and it probably is, but it's not disturbing your peace of mind.
Yeah.
And so it's nothing that you should really be, maybe there's other things that would take precedent over that, using, cannabis, is it harming you? Is it harming other people? Probably not. Maybe the expense of it or something. Maybe there's other things that money could go towards, helping other people or something like that. It's all up to a person individually, what they're going to do with that and how they look at that. But if it's something that comes up and disturbs your peace of mind, like, I should not be doing that, and it keeps coming up, then, I definitely want to take a look at that. If it's just one of those things that you enjoy and you recognize it as an attachment, but, it's not harming anybody, it's not harming you, then you should be working on other things before that. I think everybody understands what I'm saying. Any questions about any of this? The main thing is that we understand what attachments are, and we understand how they affect our lives, and the process of letting go, which is huge. That was one of the things that Buddha talked about extensively, and the aspect of how do we let go, and a lot of things we can let go from the standpoint of seeing the impermanence of it, but we want to feel that release within the body. When we actually accept the idea that we're going to let go of something, we want to feel that pleasantness in the body just from the idea of letting it go. Otherwise, we have not accepted it. We have not accepted the idea. That's important.